Welcome to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, founder of the Reiki Business Collective and creator of the Build Your Reiki Business program, sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Greetings, welcome, and thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. It's Christian of Standing Stones Healing. So honored and grateful to have you here. So thanks so very much. In this week's episode, we're talking about end-of-year reflections. End-of-year reflections for your Reiki business. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you 3 things that I really encourage you to reflect upon at the end of your Reiki business year. But why do end-of-year reflections? Why is this something that is really helpful for us in our Reiki business? Well, here at my home in central Pennsylvania, I have a lovely garden, and I'm blessed with lots of beautiful flowers. And when you have lots of flowers, you also have lots of spiders because you have lots of bugs. So I have the opportunity to watch spiders weave their webs, and my orb weavers weave their webs in a very interesting way. We often think of spiders as weaving their webs around and around and around in a circle without stopping. But that's not how my orb weavers do it. My orb weavers start out by creating a spot at the center of the web. So they create a small center. And then they go out to the edges of the web and they start piece by piece. And they'll weave a little piece and then they'll follow one of the strands back down to the center. And when they get to the center of the web, they pull. They use all 8 of their legs and they pull, and tense. And what they're doing is that they're checking the tension of the web. And so then they go back and maybe they redo the piece that they've just done because, it really doesn't have the right tension that it needs. And they'll go on and they'll build another part of the web. They'll go back to the center and they'll do that tensing again. And they are checking the tension of the web. And of course they do this because they need to have a web that can catch the bugs so that they can eat. And if their web isn't well made, if they're not checking their work as they go, then they're not going to make a good web for catching the bugs. So spiders check their work as they go. And I think it's really helpful for us in our Reiki business to check our work as we go to make sure that our Reiki business is aligned, to make sure that the web that we're weaving for our Reiki business is what we need for our Reiki business. And so the end of the year is one of those times when we can purposefully and with intention check the tension of our web. Now, I in my Reiki business do this a lot at the end of the year. I also do this throughout the year. So every month I do have a meeting in my Reiki business, and I will reflect upon certain metrics in my Reiki business and check certain things. I'm going to share some of those things with you, but I don't only do this at the end of the year in my Reiki business. I do this every month in my Reiki business, but I do a big end of the year reflection and planning at the end of the year in my Reiki business. So This time, the end of the year, is a big time for me to be doing a lot of reflections, a lot of visioning. But why also might we want to do this at the end of the year? Well, the end of the year is a great time for bringing in new energy. It's a great time for renewal. Now, I don't know about you, but at the end of the year, I start feeling a little funky. Like energetically, I just feel like I need a change. I feel like I need to do some releasing. Energetically, I feel like I need to do some rituals and some visioning and planning and bring in new energy. You know, maybe you feel that way too, but I know that I feel that way. Reiki business or not, I feel that way in my personal life, and I definitely feel that way in my Reiki business as well. And so the end of the year is a really powerful time for really setting the intention for bringing in new energy. You know, as we transition from one year to the next, it's a powerful time. Life transitions, life changes are actually really powerful times for bringing in change. So when we experience a change in our life, like the flipping of a calendar, it's actually a powerful time for creating change. So when we're going through a life change, whatever the life change might be, maybe a relocation, maybe a job loss, it is actually a powerful time for setting intention, for bringing in purposeful change. Because during those life changes, when our life change, it's a powerful time to bring in and set intention for changes that we want in our lives. And so the changing of the calendar, the changing of the year, is whether we realize it or not, and whether we harness it or not, it is a powerful time for creating change in our lives. And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us not to be missed in our Reiki business. Now, of course, if we miss it, you know, we can always set intention and we can always make change. You know, there's a lot said about New Year's resolutions, but the truth is that we can create resolutions and set intentions and goals and visions at any time. It's just that the end of the year is a marker for us collectively. And so it's a great time for intentionally bringing in new energy, for renewal, and clearing the energetic funk. Now, how you do your end of year reflections is up to you. It's completely up to you. It's as personal and individual to you as your Reiki business is. And so I want to encourage you to do this in whatever way feels right to and resonates with you. And the way in which I do this is, of course, very personal to me. However, I have a whole program for it. So I do use my Back to Center program every year to really help me with the end of the year reflections and the visioning for the next year. And I use this program because for me, with my end of year reflections, you know, there's often so much to reflect on and to think about and to look forward to for the next year that I don't know about you, but I can kind of get lost in the process. I have gotten lost in the process. And I know that I don't always make the most of the reflecting and the visioning that I might like to. And so I created a system, if you will, of doing my reflections and my rituals and visioning to really help me to stay on track with it and to get the most out of it. Now, when I say a system, it's really, that makes it sound very mechanical and very regimented, but it is really a very spiritually and soul enriching way to go about my end of year process. And it just so happens that I've created that process to share with you. You can learn more about it at standingstoneshealing.com/back to center. And yes, you can join in the reflections and the visioning with me as well. But the Back to Center program and my personal end of year reflections begin with gratitude, because I truly believe that gratitude is the best way to begin and end anything, and that includes a year. And so I begin with gratitude. I also like to consider the challenges. What were some of the challenges in my Reiki business throughout the year? What are some things that I would do differently? And often the list is long. What are lessons that I learned throughout the year? And yes, that list is also long as well. And the accomplishments. And yay, I'm excited to say that list is also always long. Now, when it comes to these lists of things, including and especially the accomplishments, so often during our reflections, we have a tendency to think about the big things and to reflect on the big things. But our end of year reflections, we often forget that little things happen throughout the year too, little meaningful and impactful things. And so during our end of year reflections, let's not forget the little things, the things that really are very impactful that we might be prone to forget. And so on my list of accomplishments for 2024 for my Reiki business is, of course, the Reiki Business Summit. It is, of course, creating the Distance Reiki Business Builder, creating the tax class. So I've created some new things, but I might also forget the little things, the emails that I might get from people tuning into the podcast who I have no idea that they're listening. They're people who aren't in my quote orbit in terms of they're not friends with me on Facebook, or they're not interacting with my posts or commenting in my groups, or maybe they're not responding to my weekly emails. But out of the blue, I just get an email from someone who says, I've been listening to your podcast for X number of months, and I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. And like, holy cow, like those things really impact me. And they bring a tear to my eye. Yes, like they are right now. And we have a tendency to forget those things and how important and special they are when we're doing something like our end of year reflections. And so during your own end of year reflections, I encourage you not to just focus on those big accomplishments, but to focus in on the small things as well. And if you're saying, I don't have any big accomplishments this year in my Reiki business, yes, indeed, you do have accomplishments. Please don't discount the power of the small. Please don't discount the power of each little step that we make in our Reiki business, because truly it does make a difference. And so even something like receiving an email from a client that says, thank you, that made a difference, that's impactful and powerful too. Now, I will say for my own Back to Center program, I do this on both a personal and a business level. And so when I'm doing the reflections, things like making the lists of what I'm grateful for from the past year, or things like accomplishments or challenges, I create double duty lists. So when I'm doing the Back to Center program at this time of year, I am doing this both for my Reiki business and for my own personal life. And so that means I am doing twice the work, and I'm having twice the insights and twice the breakthroughs on my journey. So I like to use the Back to Center program and all of the activities for both my personal life and my Reiki business. But some other ways that you may want to do end of year reflections. Remember, it's all about what resonates with you and feels right to you. Is, maybe doing a vision board. That is very common at this time of year, to reflect and do a vision board for the next year. Maybe some affirmations. I will say that I did do a vision board for 2024, and I will say that on the vision board was being on the Reiki Rays Healing Summit. Yay, it came true. So that was pretty exciting. But to set those visions for the new year, and to, a vision board doesn't have to be a big fancy thing with lots of pictures. I will say that my 2024 vision board was just a bunch of words. And I didn't do pictures on this year's vision board, but I may on next year's. We'll see. You may also be interested in creating some affirmations for yourself. Affirmations for your new year. Maybe reflecting on this past year and asking yourself, what it was that maybe you might like to improve upon, what fresh and new energy you would like to bring in for the new year, and creating some affirmations based upon your vision for the new year. And you may want to have those affirmations to recite to yourself throughout the year, to write them in a prominent place, put them on your refrigerator or something like that. I like to write on my kitchen cabinets in chalk. It comes off easily, no problem. My kitchen cabinets are wood, and I have one special little nook above my kitchen sink where I like to write things that, like, if you walked into my house, you wouldn't see it because it's there tucked into the corner, but I see it every single day at my kitchen sink. And so I will write things to myself in that special little spot. I've also been known to write not so secret things on my cabinet so that if you did walk into my house, maybe you might see some Viking runes written on my cabinets. But no matter what kind of end-of-year reflections you do, there are three things I really want to encourage you to pay attention to at the end of the year and to reflect upon. And so no matter what your end-of-year reflections look like in your personal life, in your Reiki business, I really want to encourage you to reflect upon these three things. Number one, I really want to encourage you to spend some time looking over your year's income and expenses. It's very important for us to know where we stand financially in our Reiki business, and to know what our Reiki business income was for the year, and to know what our expenses were for the year. Now, of course, this is really important for tax time, which, when we hit the end of the year, is indeed coming up very soon. But it's also just really helpful for us to know where our Reiki business stands financially and to have a very clear picture on what income we had throughout the year and what our expenses were, to subtract those expenses from our income so that we know what our net income was for the year, our profit, or frankly, maybe even our loss for the year, so that we know very clearly what that number is. Number two, if you set goals in your Reiki business, which I do recommend, I do have a podcast episode on goal setting. And I do believe that it is helpful for us in our Reiki business, even if we're not big goal setting people. As part of that visioning and looking forward in our Reiki business, I think it's very helpful for us to, even if we don't set, concrete, smart goals, to really have an idea of what we're moving towards in our Reiki business, so that at the end of the year, if we've set goals for the year, I do set yearly goals in my Reiki business. I don't always meet them. It's important for us to spend some time at the end of the year reflecting on those goals, because honestly, there's no point in setting goals if we're not going to pay attention to them and reflect upon whether or not we hit them. So at the end of the year, I recommend, if you do set goals, reflecting on those goals, remembering what they were. Yeah, by the way, it's helpful for us to, if we set goals, to write them down somewhere so that we can see them frequently and be reminded of them, but also so that we know where they are, so that we can easily find them to reflect upon whether or not we achieve those goals, or if we just, quite frankly, forgot about them. Yep, I've done that too. And number three, something that we probably do not do as part of our end of year reflections, but that is really helpful for our Reiki business, is to reflect upon our client and student successes and their accomplishments. So often during our end of year reflections, we are focusing on our own accomplishments, our own Reiki business goals. And we forget about our client accomplishments, our client and student successes, and celebrating those. And so with these client and student success reflections, I want to encourage you to just take a moment to celebrate your students. Even if you don't reach out to them or send them a note to celebrate their accomplishments and successes, or post about it in your community, or call them out in a class, whatever it might be. Even if you don't do that in a public kind of way or a private way with reaching out to them, I just recommend doing that in your own Reiki business, to just give gratitude to and celebrate your students, even privately for yourself. I also recommend doing this with the mind of considering any stories and testimonials that you might be able to use for your own Reiki business. And so if you have a client who has really had some great success with decreasing their anxiety, to remember that story so that you can tell it to others, and you can tell it in your Reiki business marketing, your website, and testimonials as well. Now, you don't have to name names, and you don't even have to have the student the client create an official testimonial in which they're using their picture and their name. You can just say, oh, I had throughout the year this client who was having some real challenges with anxiety. They came to me, and after 3 sessions, they noticed a real decrease in their anxiety levels. They were able to sleep better, and yada, yada, yada. I don't know about you, but in my Reiki business, I forget these things a lot. So, when we have so many client and students that we're working with and so many successes, I quite frankly often forget. I forget to note their successes, and I forget to share their successes. And so I need this for sure at the end of the year in my Reiki business, to remember to reflect upon the accomplishments that my students and clients had, and then to even, yes, share them and to incorporate them in my marketing materials, in my ways that I'm talking about my Reiki business, about my services and classes and all of it. So let's not forget the successes of our clients and students, and let's not forget to talk about them next year as well. So do you do end-of-year reflections in your Reiki business? How do you reflect on the end of the year in your Reiki business? Join us in the Reiki Business Collective Facebook group and tell us all about it at facebook.com/groups/Reiki Biz. And if you are looking for a powerful way to reflect upon the end of the year and to start the new year with power and purpose, join me in my Back to Center program. You can learn all about it and start right now at standingstoneshealing.com/back to center. 2 with a T-O, 2, back to center. Sending so many blessings and best wishes to your end of the year reflections and to your Reiki business. Thanks for tuning in to the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, and send to a friend. Learn more about the Build Your Reiki Business program at standingstoneshealing.com/build. Sending blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business.